So, Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein.
Dr. Mel Rosenberg.
It's so lovely to see you.
It's great to see you.
I'm going to have trouble interviewing you today without crying.
We go back a long way.
We go back a long way. So we were born in 1951.
Nachon.
And whoever wants to can make the cheshbon, the reckoning of how old we are.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm what they call an AK, an alta caca.
I'm right up there with you. And you have had a most amazing career. I just want to tell you, Baruch Hashem is right. And I just want to tell you, when I'm abroad, I'm in my hotel room. It's 4 in the morning. I have nothing to do, so I watch TV. And I see a Robertson, Pat Robertson, and he's talking something about Christianity. He says, okay, now we're going to go to our friend Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein in Israel. And I see you in my hotel room. I'm somewhere in Texas. I say, Yechiel, that's Yechiel. So
indeed,
you brought through your Keren, through your fund. The fund's name is.
Shall I give a little background on that? But the organization's name is the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews.
Okay.
In Israel, it's called Hakeren Lididut.
Hakeren Lididut. And I watch you every morning helping Israelis all over the country. And rumor has it that you brought hundreds of millions of dollars to Israel.
Oh, yeah, around $750 million. We're the largest philanthropy now in Israel.
So that's pretty amazing. And so I first of all, I just want to say, kol hakavod, chapeau. That is quite remarkable. And what we want to do now is go back, because I knew you when you were a kid. We grew up together. We were best friends in first grade and second grade. Either I was over at your place on Shabbos, or you were over at my place on Sundays.
Right.
In one sentence, what do you remember from going over to my place?
Didn't we go blueberry picking? I remember, my father...
Raspberry.
Frankly, I remember you having a family on Sundays.
Yeah.
That was more than I had, because my father is the rabbi of the community.
He was my rabbi.
It was your rabbi, but Sunday was his busiest day. He had funerals and weddings and bat mitzvahs and things like that. So I never had Sunday with the family type of thing. And Shabbos I'm observant, so it's not like I would go raspberry picking on Saturday.
We weren't that observant when we were 7 years old, but we didn't know any better.
Well, but I remember you always being idealistic, Zionistic, and very principled.
And
That's how I remember.
I remember you being one of the most charming people I've ever met, and in the best sense of the word. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we want to
before we start, I've got to tell you, I still remember how some 40 years ago you tackled me in football, and I still remember kind of the shame of being tackled.
That's right. And well, so from my point of view, it's the last play before the end of the recess. It's snowy and icy.
Yes.
And I'm like,
still remember that.
Instead of kicking the ball, decide to give the ball to you when you're running, and you're like the hero football player of the school. And you're coming at me, and I'm the lone defender, and Yechiel's coming at me.
I still remember that.
And me too, because for me, tackling Yechiel, the last play of the game, was amazing. I never forgot that. And I just lunged at you, and you slipped on the ice.
No, you're being generous. You got me.
No, it was great. But I also remember, the main questions I want to ask you is, what is the DNA of success of Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein?
Number one, there is no one component, obviously, to the DNA. It's a combination of different factors, including what we might say is mazel, just good fortune. I left home at 13. And that has good and bad. The bad is, the negative is that I was alone. The positive is I had to fend for myself. And I wasn't a great student. I was a B to C student in most things. I wasn't turned on by study or learning. I always actually felt inferior in the academic world then and later. I was, the basketball player and the guitar player and the charismatic, as you put it, friendly guy. I didn't have any goals or determination to succeed in life. I never looked ahead and said, what do I want to make of myself in my life?
So you didn't have a game plan?
I didn't have a game plan. But even more than that, I didn't have the determination to have a game plan. I just lived there. I mean, I went to school, I went to college, I went to graduate school for my doctoral work. I went for smicha in New York, received my smicha. And until that point, in my rabbinate degree, and so I was 25 before I really got started.
Wow.
And what got me started, this is part of the DNA question, is I had intended to be a rabbi of a synagogue like my father and to teach in university and combine those two, but it didn't, for a variety of reasons, it didn't work out. I took a job with the Anti-Defamation League.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me to Chicago, and that's where I started for the first time in my life at the age of 25, 26, 27 to flourish. I could never write well. All of a sudden, I'm writing brilliantly and have a column in the Chicago Sun-Times. I was never especially capable in anything, and all of a sudden there I am starting the first Holocaust curriculum in a public school system in the United States, starting the first Holocaust Christian Holocaust memorial service in the United States, starting two organizations that dealt with Indo-Chinese refugees, the boat people at the time who were fleeing, which I saw as a Jewish issue. One of the organizations, called the American Refugee Committee, is all over the world helping refugees. The other that I started was called ETFR, which was an acronym for Emergency Task Force for Indo-Chinese Refugees. It was to get America to accept the boat people into America, leading demonstrations, all of that stuff. I suddenly developed a self-confidence.
Okay, so let me
that's what was, if I had to put my finger on, at that point, what got me started, it wasn't determination to succeed, it was feeling good about myself and about my abilities, which kicked in for the first time then.
Wow. So, but like as growing up with you, I mean, you were a born leader as far as I was concerned. So was a question for you of recognizing that in yourself?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I didn't see myself as such. I didn't know that others back then saw me as such.
Well, we did. So.
No, I didn't. I didn't feel it, even though, look, I was popular in camp with the girls and things, but not until then did I have that self-confidence. And what I realized is I couldn't write before that because I didn't have the confidence in what I was saying.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, when you talked about issues that I cared passionately about, Indo-Chinese refugees, Soviet Jewry at the time, and freedom, so God Zionism and the PLO and Israel, all of a sudden I found myself able to write easily.
So what percent is the passion? It's a big factor here?
For me, then came, frankly, I liked seeing myself in the newspaper. I liked...
A lot of us do.
Well, maybe too much, because I'm always checking my ego and making sure that I'm not being... It's okay to feel good about what you're doing and to want the acknowledgement and recognition, but coming from yeshivas as I did, it's always this self-reflection and making sure that it's not my ego that's motivating me, but a healthy ego that wants to get credit, so to speak, and be acknowledged for what you did. When I left the ADL after, so one of the things I did, the major thing I did, was I started the first evangelical Jewish dialogue in the world.
Well, just let me ask you now one question, because we don't have, I would sit with you till tomorrow, but you have to go do your amazing stuff. You talked about luck, okay? Was there, sometimes when I interview people, it was like, they tell me that there was a 10-minute event that changed their lives. Was there some event, some meeting, something that you read, someone you talked to, that put you on like a stellar path?
No. I wish I could say that there was. The only thing I can attribute that success to was the constant drip of feeling of self-confidence, and that led to determination, that led to facing whatever opposition or whatever you throw against me, putting your head down. I happen to have also the dimension, I'm very grateful for it, of faith. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a group of friends.
Mm-hmm. As a kid, you were kind of fearless.
Was I?
Yes. Is that a faith thing? Because that comes to, when I was interviewing my brother David, okay? When you get to be a person who is in the newspaper all the time, right? And you are raising money from evangelical Christians, okay? So with all the amazing stuff you're doing, you have detractors.
Yes.
Okay, what do the detractors say?
Well,
and how do you deal with that?
That's a key dimension of the DNA success. It's how do you deal with failure? How do you deal with opposition? I don't like to lose.
You never did.
I don't like to get into fights. I'm very, I'll avoid things. But I will, if I do engage, it's engage. And I want to win. So I may not engage in most things. In this case, I started after 6 years. I left the ADL, and I started with nothing, a new organization. So here you have a guy who's 32 years old. His wife is pregnant. Just put down a mortgage on his first home. Leaves his organization because they wanted me to come to New York to be the national director of Christian-Jewish relations for a variety of reasons I didn't want to. Feeling a sense of, and this is a key dimension too, but forgive me if it sounds super spiritual, a calling. A calling.
Nothing wrong with that.
A shlichut in Hebrew.
Yeah.
That God was calling me to a particular place and action, like in the Torah, in the Bible, where God says to Abraham, Lech lecha me'artzcha, leave your home, leave where you come from, and go to a land that I will show you. He doesn't even tell him where he's going. And walk with God in faith and in determination, and that then, through you, says the Bible, you will be a blessing to the world. If I had to put my whole career into a sentence from the Bible, it's that I went off on my own. I had all sorts of opposition. I had no money. I had no office, no secretary. I was changing 2,000 years of history in which Christians related to Jews. I was dealing with the conservative, evangelical, Pentecostal Jews who were seen by Jewish leadership and the Jewish community, which is liberal and democratic, they saw these people who I was working with, the Pat Robertsons, the Jerry Falwell,
as Republicans.
As not just Republicans,
right-wing Republicans.
As Christians who are going to erode Jewish liberties, make America into a Christian nation, prevent abortions, have school prayer, against homosexuality. These were the people who were going to take apart America, and the Jewish leadership was opposed to it. And here I was starting a new organization, a new field.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle of that. And so that's where the element of, you know, when my kids were little, I used to read to them this little book about Louis Pasteur, Believing in Yourself.
Yechiel, I was just going to quote him.
Really?
How spooky is that?
That's pretty spooky.
Okay,
now.
so, yeah, okay.
And that was, for me, a key ingredient. Believing in myself, believing in the cause, not being afraid to hit that cause with determination, with a lot of pain, I've been excommunicated from synagogues because of that, publicly excoriated. I mean, there is barely a day that goes by where I'm not attacked in some way, but and at times needing physical bodyguards because of threats.
David talked in his interview about thick skin. You know, when you become famous and you go against the grain.
Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard to develop because, at least for me it was, because I'm very sensitive. And I also am not good at putting on airs. I am who I am. When you have a situation where you go to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, and you go up to the Torah, you get an aliyah, you get called to the Torah, and then the rabbi says, well, someone just told me that you're questionable about whether or not we can give you an aliyah to the Torah because you work with Christians and goyim, etc., etc.
Wow.
And it's wherever you go, you can't escape it. Then it was hard for me, and what got me through it, I had one of the key people who had an influence on me, people who had the greatest influence on me, was Rabbi Shlomo Kalbach, the singer. And I'm a singer with a guitar, and we used to sing often together on the same shows. And his power of love that exuded from him, non-judgmentalism, he was constantly attacked. The difference between me and Kalbach is, as Senator Joe Lieberman once sent to me 10 years ago already, I've been vindicated. He died before the vindication.
Yeah.
Before he saw the fact that virtually every synagogue in America and around the world uses his tunes, etc., in the prayer service, I saw the vindication that now some of the very individuals and organizations that would attack me are now at my door asking for money.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's The belief, in my case, the belief in myself leading to determination, believing in the cause, willingness to sacrifice for it, paying a price for it,
but at the end
on.
At the end of the day, what you're saying is that you're not thick-skinned. You are sensitive.
Oh yeah.
And I want now to
I mean, I'm better at it now. You know, after going through the ordeals, I've gone through, you develop a thick skin.
So this
now,
is something
for the most
this
part,
is something that grew on you over the years.
100%, and it grew on me. The more self-confidence I had, the more that I was doing this for me and because I truly believed in it, rather than to get the accolades or the word I use, legitimization. I was engaged in something that was deemed illegitimate. And I had to believe in that to succeed and to persevere. And so, yeah.
Yechiel, did leaving home at 13, I mean, this is like a mixed bag, right? You know, you have to cope on your own. I left home when I was 17, so I can only imagine at 13. So you had to, from a very young age, cope.
Yes.
In a sentence, is this something, a mechanism that leaving home helped you to develop?
I remember someone who I know who was in the yeshiva system all his life, and he was nothing, and he told me that until he went to Korea as an 18-year-old and left his family for the first time, that's when he became his own person. My childhood, which you remember, but I was, from the age of 13, I was away most of the year. It wasn't just...
No, I remember that.
It's camp for 2 months.
Of course.
And I was home maybe 2-3 weeks out of the whole year. So there's the pluses and the minus. The plus, as you point out, is that you've got to make it. It's sink or swim. The minus, and in my case, I think it was more heavily weighted to the minus than the plus, is that you really become alone, and that you can really feel alone, and not having a secure place. Mm-hmm. What is your home? I don't know. I lived in a dormitory all my life. What is my home? Mm-hmm. Where do I feel so comfortable, so free, so protected? Where is your home? Not having that, and
you
having
were
to
a vagabond for over a dozen years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
during the teenage years,
yeah,
when your whole identity is being shaped.
Yeah.
It was tough.
I want to tell you a few things about our childhood, the things that I remember, okay, outside of tackling you once in my life. Because you were over at my place on Sundays, and I was over at your place on Shabbos after prayer in the synagogue, and your dad was my rabbi at the bar mitzvah, and I'm going to tell you another story which you don't know in a second. And we'd be there for Shabbos dinner, and it was a very lovely Shabbos dinner. And your dad,
lunch more, no?
Lunch, yeah, lunch? Yeah. Well, we say lunch.
Okay.
We say dinner, whatever. It's all right, after Beit Knesset. And your father, whom I always took to be a very serious rabbi, would say to me, Melech, would you say hello please to the man under the table?
Oh.
And I would say, do you remember this? And I'd say, Rabbi, there isn't anybody under the table. He would say, of course there is. Would you say good Shabbos to him? So, every week was the same thing. I ended up saying good Shabbos to the guy under the table. Do you remember that?
I do, because my parents didn't want to have to cope with the kids crying and talking, and that's when we were little. And so my father would always play this game of telling us if it's a magic trick. If you sit under the table and you don't move and you don't talk, then you won't be able to move or talk.
So that's crowd management.
Yeah. And we believed in it, and so we would sit under the table, and then after 5-10 minutes, we'd say, well, what's going on? Oh, you ruined it. You have to start from the beginning.
So I was very active in shul.
Yes.
On the one hand, I had my habonim
and
my socialism, and every Shabbos in shul, and I was also head of the junior congregation for years.
That's right.
And in my teens, your dad invited me to pray Musaf in the main shul.
Wow.
And his grandeur was that I wasn't a Shomer Shabbos. And not all of the people who were running the shul.
Really?
Yeah. So the same thing that you talked about, and I'm getting shivers running. I had to mention this, that he was large enough as rabbi of the congregation to be more of a Franz Rosenzweig in his viewpoint.
That's really a nice story. I'll tell him about that.
And I remember that so vividly. Every time I would come back from Israel, he'd invite me to the pulpit to talk about the life in Israel. And sometimes I was quite a renegade. I remember talking about how we should pay more attention to what the Histadrut does with money. And like everybody in shul looking at me, Jimmy's dad, my father, and your dad was okay with that. So that's amazing. And to come back now to one of my heroes, not as a human being perhaps, but as a scientist, and that's Louis Pasteur, who was probably, if not the greatest scientist that ever lived, one of the greatest scientists. And he's misquoted. He says that, he's quoted as saying, chance favors the prepared mind. But that's not what he said, because he didn't speak English. He said in French something like "L'hasard ne sourit qu'aux les esprits bien préparés." Excuse me for my French. Which means that a chance does not smile except on the ones who are well prepared.
Yeah, that's you okay with this?
Well,
okay.
That's a divine sign.
It definitely is. That sounds right.
It's not just luck, is it? You have to chase it. Because my students, this is very important, and maybe we can end with this and it'll be splendid because they're turning off the lights. My students believe that life is like some kind of mifal pais or toto or something, where you either buy a ticket and you get lucky, or you don't get lucky. And I say, it's not like that. If you run around...
I didn't have that. I didn't have that, and the incidents where it did come together, it's like the joke of the man who died in a flood. Let's see if I can get it right. Man, he comes to heaven. Well, a flood started, and a police car comes by and says, "Come, I'll take you out." Evacuation. No, I trust in the Lord. And then the water gets higher, and police come in a boat. Come, the water is getting higher. No, I trust in the Lord. Finally, he has to go on top of the roof. A police helicopter comes and says, "Come, let us save you." No, I trust in the Lord. Finally, he dies. The water goes over that. Comes to heaven. "Lord, I trusted in you." The Lord says, "I sent you a police car. I sent you a boat. I sent you that." I think that's what you're saying and what Louis Pasteur was saying. There's a dimension, well, two things. Number one, there is a dimension of luck or happenstance, but the question is whether you're going to take advantage of it, whether you're going to hear that calling. And the second thing is really a belief that God, in my case, that God was preparing me through all these little incidents of my
including the football tackle.
Well, I don't know about that, but that was a feeling of failure for my first time to be tackled.
That must have rebuilt you or something. Don't make me feel guilty now.
No, I happened to meet, when I was in Chicago, I happened to meet the head of Wheaton College, which is Billy Graham's alma mater. And it turns out that he happened to be from Boston.
Oh.
And it turns out that my impressions of Pentecostals, of evangelicals as these southern rednecks with a big 6-gauge shotgun and a big dog in a pickup truck drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon beer and anti-Semitic, here's a guy who speaks like John F. Kennedy. He's from Boston, he's intelligent, he's got it broke my whole stereotype of evangelical Christians. And then we talked, spent hours together talking about the Bible, different things. Then we said, hold it, let's bring in somebody else. We brought in someone from another Christian university, and together we started the first evangelical Jewish dialogue in the world in 2,000 years. So you can say, well, it was luck, it was happenstance,
Basher,
yeah. Or you can say God places those kinds of situations in front of us all the time, every moment. You quoted Franz Rosenzweig before. He said once, look at every moment in life as a possibility of finding God behind it.
Wow.
So even if you don't see it in divinity terms, look at every moment in life as an opportunity to take advantage of. In that case, it led to my starting the first evangelical conference. Speed up the speed dial to today, 30 whatever years later, we are now not only the largest Jewish philanthropy in Israel and the world. We're helping, last year we helped 1.4 million people who wouldn't have been helped if not for that happenstance meeting that got me into this. Today the evangelical world is so big, then it wasn't. Then Latin America was an entirely Catholic country, continent. Today, almost every country in Latin America has 30-40% Pentecostals, evangelicals. You look at the Far East. Today, there are millions, tens of millions of Pentecostals in Korea, in the Philippines, in Singapore, in China. All of that can be brought, if we think strategically, under the rubric of supporters of Israel and the Jewish people. Not just money, tourism, hasbara. In other words, this whole new strategic alliance after 2,000 years, where the Christians who were the enemy all of a sudden become our only pretty much true friends when Israel is in battle, all because I happened to met, I'm not taking all the credit for it, but because I happened to met that guy. No, it was, that's a circumstance that God gives to us. So you can tell your students that,
but that wasn't
it's a lot of hard work.
It
wasn't luck.
No, I'm not talking about luck. I'm talking about an event.
An event. No, I mean, there's so many. Each event.
I say that.
I remember not having.
So there were several.
There
Okay.
were several, but each moment is an event. I didn't have money for stamps. I didn't have an office. A friend of mine who was a lawyer let me use a desk and a phone in the closet room. And for 4 months, that's how I did it, till I was able to. I didn't have tax exempt status. I didn't have money to pay the lawyer to get me tax exempt status, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember meeting different people and saying, oh, wealthy people, here's my chance. If I'm gonna do this, it'll be clear sailing from there. It never happened.
Yeah.
I never had that one person who's gonna give you everything on a silver plate, and even though you thought, it's a series of steps,
one by one, baby steps. Every once in a while, maybe
And I read somewhere that most of the people who donate money donate a few dollars now and then.
That's correct. It's our average gift, Mel. It's unbelievable. Is $77.
Yeah, that's great.
We have 1.3 million donors, and it defies all the rules of organizations and fundraising, where 90% of the funds is given by 10% of the people. We turn that pyramid over.
But you know, we're towards the end of our wonderful conversation. But it did ruin something. It ruined your musical career.
Well.
And now you want to leave all this behind and be president of the country. In 2 sentences, why do you want to be president of Israel?
Well, firstly, I have not submitted my name yet, and I don't know when this will be shown. And
we can edit this out.
We'll know within the next 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, it was suggested to me.
We're talking about it now.
Right, that's fine. Hypothetically. Number one, for personal reasons, I feel I've climbed every mountain. Mm-hmm. I've conquered every mountain. I've been so blessed. I have a family. I have a salary, an income. I am physically older, but basically okay. I've done books. I've done record albums. I've done performances. I've been in war. I've kind of done everything. What's my next? I've created this monster of an organization. What's my next challenge? So I'm at the stage, I don't know where you are, but I'm at the stage where I'm 63, kind of done everything, created this new possibility that functions now without me, even though I'm the brand. Now what do I do with my life? I'm not the kind of person who can go off and play golf.
Nor am I.
Nor you, nor are many people. And so I either have to find a new balance in what I'm doing, and or my father, who at the end was your rabbi, at the age of 58, he left the congregation and he went to school in clinical psychology, and he always felt and said that people should have 2 careers at least. One that takes them into their 50s, and when they get burned out on that, to have a new challenge, to have something go.
Tell your dad, at 58, I left university.
Okay, so
I have
that's what happened.
Now.
So there's a possibility to represent the state of Israel would be the greatest privilege that I could ever have.
Wow. In one word, as president of the country, having been able to conquer all the things you conquered and to bring shalom bayit between so many Christians and so many Jews, will you be able to help bring peace? In one word. Okay, 3 words.
How about 4?
Okay.
Everyone can bring peace. We each in our own, there's no one person who can bring the peace. I really do believe when you have peace in your own heart, then you can bring shalom and love to others. I'm okay, you're okay type of a thing. Whatever peace I've brought between Jews and Christians, right now we need to focus on bridge building within ourselves, to extend love within the Israeli community, not just between Jews and Arabs, but among the Jewish people themselves, religious. Shalom bayit. If there's one thing that I would, if I become president, that I would love to be known as a legacy to have achieved in that capacity, it is shalom bayit.
Wow. So, Yechiel, this was a dream come true for me. And maybe it took so many years, because I've seen you over the years hobnobbing with the Prime Minister of the country and on television and so on. And I had a little trepidation. Is Yechiel, still Yechiel. And you are.
Thank you.
But now I need.
But I still carry this grudge.
Okay, but to put the cherry on the katzefet of this conversation, I want to sing together with you a Carlebach song. I'll let you do most of the singing.
Okay, which song?
You pick. Esainai, whatever you love.
No, you pick. Esainai?
Esainai, go ahead.
Go, no, you start.
No, I don't know whether you're a tenor or baritone.
Oh, Esainai el harimea in mea in yavo ezri. I lift up my eyes unto the mountains, from whence will my salvation come. Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim ba'aretz. My help comes from the Lord who created heaven and earth. The words actually fit.
Yechiel, you deserve a heart.
How's my breath?
Huh?
How's my breath?
I don't do that anymore. I do other things.
That was an earlier stage.
God has taught me, stop smelling people, start helping people. So that's what I'm doing.
It was a pleasure.
Can we post this on our YouTube channel? And
Sure. I don't think there's
this has
anything
been,
that needs to be censored there.
No, and I must say that on the one hand, we should have done it years ago, but on the other hand, it's great that we did it. And we have a lot. I mean, please, my love to your parents.
How old are your children?
Children, my daughter's 30. She's an orechet din.
Here in Israel?
Here in Israel. Baby, so I'm a Saba for the first time.
Where they live?
Right near us in Ramat Gan. And my son has finished the army. He's in Shana Aleph Ben Tchumi.
IDC?
IDC, and
What does he want to do?
well. He wants, like when
So they're young.
Yeah, when we were kids, okay, I wanted to be a millionaire before I was 30. And then I wanted to be a millionaire before I was 50. I kept putting it off. He wants to be a millionaire. He wants to change the world. He wants to invent things. He's a coach, a soccer coach. But one of the things that we've managed with the kids is he instills in his children a love for life, a love for humanity, derech eretz, a love for schooling. And
I said that's what I remember about you, being moral, having a real strict moral code, your Zionism, which I didn't understand back then. I don't know if we're still running but I did not understand or feel anything for your Habonim type. It was an enigma to me. How could you not be religious and feel so strongly about Israel?
Wow.
Secular Zionist was eluded me.
Wow.
For many years thereafter. The same thing with Jimmy.
Yes.
Shalom, strong Zionist enough that you both made Aliyah.
But at the same time, we both went to shul.
Yeah, but I couldn't eat at your house. I couldn't eat at anybody's house, even on birthdays. I had to bring my own cake.
Yeah.
Except for Koenig. Leo Koenig's house.
Who were more frum than anybody else.
Right, that was the only house in Ottawa
where you could have birthday
to eat in.
You probably phoned up Sophie and said, Sophie, can we have a birthday party every month?
How do you remember? Wow.
Of course. Württemberg Street.
Right.
And I remember your house on Davie. I remember it intimately. We used to play soccer in the hall. We used to turn the lights on and off on Shabbos with our teeth. That's for the camera.
Quiet.
Yechiel,
it's good being with you, Mel.
All I can wish is that your future dreams will also come true.
Amen.
הרבה, ועוד, הצלחה.
תודה.
I'm tickled pink to find you after all these years, the same kid that I tackled.
Yeah.